We are live, coming to you from an undisclosed location somewhere in Northeast Ohio. I'm Josh McClay, aka O'Malley of O'Malley's Adventure. That's Paul Manson, City of Massillon Council at Large candidate. And this is O'Malley Live. I want to thank everybody for joining, whether you're watching live or in post. The number to contact the show is 330-809-1924, or you can email us at o'malleysadventure@yahoo.com. Paul Manson, how you doing, my friend?
Very good.
Outstanding.
Very good, Josh.
So that we're continuing the interviews with the people running. You're at council at large. Before we start, what year did you come on?
2004 was my first year.
So was you with Ron Mang? Was you with that group?
I served a long time with Ron Mang.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm trying to put a time frame.
Yeah, he was there when I first went in. Yep.
Okay. So give us a little bit about your background growing up. Are you from Massillon?
I'm from Massillon. I was born in Massillon. I was raised in Brookfield, West Brookfield.
Okay.
In fact, I live right now about a half mile from where my family actually lived when I was a kid.
Okay.
Went to Washington High School. When I finished high school, I went into an apprenticeship at Republic Steel. It wasn't in Massillon, it was in Canton at the time. Things were actually winding down a little bit in Massillon, a little ahead of Canton, I believe.
Right.
So I served an apprenticeship. I stayed over there 7 years. And then in 1972, I went to the Hoover Company in North Canton and stayed there to 2002, and then I retired.
Oh, did you got to retire?
Yes.
Before they went through their...
Yes. But I was there when it was starting to erode away.
Right.
Yeah, they started moving things to Texas and Mexico.
Right.
So I know what it is, to be involved in that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I married Christine Reese. She graduated the same year as I did from Massillon. She was a school teacher at Gorell.
Yeah. Somebody asked me if she was a school teacher because they think they had her.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she had a lot of them. She started for a year or two at, maybe even more than a year or two at Smith, 3 or 4 maybe. And then after we got married, she took a year off when we had a kid. And then she went back to Gorell, and she stayed at Gorell almost 30 years, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
That's a long time to put up with, I always say the reason I had 3 kids is because I didn't want 4 or 5 or 6. That'd be a tough job.
Yeah, it is. I used to hear a lot about it.
I bet you did. So what got you into politics?
What got me into politics? I've always liked to be involved.
Okay.
And I was involved in union politics at Hoover.
Yep.
I was also involved in union politics at Republic Steel for a while. Then probably in about 1985, I got involved with a group called BEBM, Better Education, Better Massillon.
Okay.
This was back before we built the new high school. And I saw our community, and I saw what I thought we needed in our community.
Okay.
We needed, at that time, I felt we needed a new school.
Right.
Among other things. So I got involved in that. Then along the way, I served on different committees. Like I was on the committee when we, went out and actually got a bond issue for the new high school.
Right.
And then in 1992 or 3, I was a chairman of a committee for a school levy, operating levy for Massillon. And a lot of people talked to me about that they thought I should run for something, like school board or something like that. I said, no, I don't want to do that. My wife's a teacher. I just didn't want to get involved in that stuff.
Sure.
But I wanted to help because I had a son in school, and I really believed we needed to do some things with our school system at that time. And then somebody said something to me about, why don't you think about running for council? And I said, well, I don't know. I'm not sure. So then Frank Ciccanelli asked me if I were going to planning commission.
Okay.
So I served 4 years on the planning commission and got my feet wet, saw a little bit how things operated. And I ran the first time in 2001. I would have taken office in 2002 if I won. I lost by about 40 votes. And then I ran again in 2003 and won and went into office in 2004.
Been there ever since.
So I've been there for a while.
Um, so I asked the questions about the taxes, the lighting fee, stormwater, whatnot. Would you consider consolidating that into one tax? That way, people didn't have a fee. Like, if, let's say we need X number of dollars, and currently across the board for parks and street and stormwater, we have a certain number. Would you consider making that one tax?
If it makes things simpler, the key is, though, we need a certain amount of revenue. That's what it,
Right.
amounts to. I mean, by consolidating it, I can't see where it's going to save us any money, but it may make it simpler for everybody to deal with.
I was going to say because one of the questions that people ask me is, I'm paying for this, but there's this much for this, and I think some people are confused. Like with the tax credit, that confused a lot of people. You know, a lot of people didn't know that was part of a package deal.
Right.
You know, so that's why I'm thinking if it was all just say just call it 2 or 2.5%,
Right,
whatever it would
right.
be.
And maybe you could do that. People don't understand how some of these things have changed over time. Lighting, street lighting, some of those costs really started to take off astronomically
Right.
10, 15 years ago. And we absorbed it as long as we could. Something had to happen. Stormwater, nobody even cared about stormwater at one time. Okay?
Right.
All we did was just dig ditches or put pipes in, and we ran it out into the river. That, you can't do that anymore. Just,
Right.
you just can't do that. They look at that as pollution,
Right.
and they're getting tougher and tougher and
Oh, yeah.
tougher all the time on how we control stormwater.
Sure.
It's just the way it is. People don't want pollution, so you have to do something about it.
Right. Speaking of running water, the resi,
Yes.
big topic right now. I've been going to some of the park board meetings, and there's actually some movement there to move past just what it is now. So, what's your thoughts on it? Is it something? I personally, restoring it to what it was is Fantasyland. I don't see them adding to that dam and bringing it back to what it was.
Yeah.
But is there a way to be fiscally responsible and put water back there?
Yeah. You said Fantasyland, and I think if you were at the Lincoln, you heard what I said about it. I mean, I'm being very realistic about it.
Right.
We were under the thumb of the Ohio Department of Natural Resources and Ohio Department of Natural Resources. I'll stick with that.
Right.
And they were the ones that forced us to lower the level of that because they
Right.
felt it was a danger. I can't say if it was or wasn't, okay?
Right.
I wonder, with as shallow as that thing was, that how much of a danger. But I also realized, too, with all the runoff and stuff we had coming through there, I mean, that water was backing up for miles back into Perry Township and
Sure.
stuff like that. So it was a danger.
Mm-hmm.
It was a danger. I think we're going in the right direction. I think, and I've had people, I go up there once in a while. I don't go a lot, but I go up there, usually try to drive around once every week or two.
Mm-hmm.
We cut down all those scrub trees and everything along the west side, and now they finally started mowing and stuff, and it's looking a little better. Now, I think we need to keep taking steps like that and working on it. Now, if somebody at some point in time wants to come up with the idea of maybe making a smaller pool closer to that dam, that's maybe a few acres rather than what it was,
Right.
if you can get the money for it, I don't have a problem with something like that. But that's where the rubber meets the road.
Right.
What it would cost, and people don't realize how much of a headache it is to try to maintain that reservoir.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we pumped that thing out in, I think it was 2000,
Yeah.
and probably within 5 years, the sediment was back in there again.
Right.
So, you know, you would have to have a regular program to do that, or you would have to get, they talk about putting some kind of sediment ponds upstream somewhere or something like that.
Right.
I'm not so sure that stuff will work. It's
Mm.
just a matter there's too much runoff anymore.
Right.
And
It does.
runoff brings erosion and brings
Right.
the silt and stuff with it.
They get a lot of move during a downpour. There's a lot of moving water down there.
Yep. I'm not saying leave it the way it is, though.
Right.
I'm saying at the very least it should look just as good as the park looks below the dam.
Sure.
That park looks fine below the dam.
Right.
There might have been some problems, you know, down around where the Lincoln Way is and
Sure.
stuff that we had to fix, but that park is a nice park.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would expect the top over 2 or 3 years, that's what it ought to look like,
Right.
something like that. But then, if somebody wants to look at the other part of it, that's up to them, the people down the road, to do
Yeah.
that. But I don't even really. It's just not in my thought process about trying to get it back to what it was.
Right.
First of all, we'd have to get it re-permitted.
Mm-hmm.
ODNR would be right back in the middle of it. That'd be a fight. That'd be a problem.
Right.
And maybe the cost of what they would demand would be out of line.
Right. Well, moving on to another topic, the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
The hospital, they're talking VA, and some people are asked because they're talking about a clinic. So when you think clinic, you're thinking smaller scale. Is the VA actually looking at the actual main building or one of those buildings there? Because I think the one used to be like occupational health. It faces 8th Street.
Yes, at one time I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what's your thoughts on the hospital?
Well, it's a good building.
Right.
Okay. You know, people will say, well, there were problems with the roof, you know, that need done and stuff like that. But there were plans even before Affinity left in their 5-year plans to fix those roofs and stuff like that. So they're not in that building is not in that bad a shape. Truly,
Okay.
it's most hospital buildings are fairly well maintained.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be,
Sure.
you know. So it's a fairly good building. What's sad is the emergency room and stuff and the intensive care. That's all almost state of the art. It was just finished several years ago,
Right.
you know, and I mean it's a beautiful facility.
Right.
I don't know how that fits with a clinic or anything.
Sure.
You know, that's one of the best pieces of the whole thing.
Right.
I hope it works like that,
Right.
but you know, and they talk positively. You come to the council meetings and you hear the administration talking positively, but they talk positively also about the interest in the hospital when Affinity first left from others.
Right.
Well, it wasn't there.
Right.
It really wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
My fear is with the, with the veterans plan, those things are really slow moving.
Yes. Uncle
And
Sam
it's also
doesn't.
competitive.
Yeah.
Every community would like to have something like that in their community.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the only thing that I can say is that I know last summer down in D.C., they passed some things for veterans.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it was trying to put facilities closer and closer to people so they didn't have to drive. No one would have to go, say, 60 miles or 40 miles. There would be, you know, a VA clinic within 40 to 60 miles of everybody.
Right.
If they fund that, that means there are going to be more facilities.
Right.
So maybe we get that.
Right.
It's worth it for a while for us to maintain that building.
Right.
It's not costing us as much now to maintain it as it did like the first 6 months.
Right.
There were some things we had to keep going if we were going to either use them or sell them or whatever, but the cost is down. but we can't sit on it forever either. We all see the experience that we had with Doctors
Sure.
Hospital out there. They had all these promises, and not promises, but hope. They hoped to do some things just like what we're talking about, and now they're tearing it down today.
Sure.
They've been tearing it down this week.
Right.
So where that'll end up exactly, I don't know.
Right.
I don't think we'll sit on them as long as they did that out there, maybe.
Right.
But I hope something does come through there.
Sure. Well, obviously hindsight's 2020, and they were working on something with that was called Paramount. But if you could go back and say, we don't want that one, let's do this one. Was there another option that was brought forward that you thought, maybe that would be a good second place?
There were about 3 options. Was about it.
Mm-hmm.
None of them were spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Altman had an option.
Right.
To me, it falls short of what we really wanted,
Mm-hmm.
but it was an option.
Right.
The other ones would have, they claimed they were going to try to run it, but nobody came forward with a real plan.
Right.
I think maybe we should have gotten some more professional help
Right.
as far as trying to look for some people interested. Maybe, if we'd have got more people out of that business in the middle of it,
Right.
maybe we could have done something, but didn't work.
Yeah.
It's, it is what it is now.
Sure.
I'm not ready to knock it down.
Right. What have because the schools are looking for a location, I believe, because they're in the maybe there's a way to maneuver that around if something would fall through with the VA to because I mean you have the right.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Sorry, I didn't think to turn that off.
You do have the right type of roads around there if for something like a school. But yeah, I think hope, and I believe she said the end of the year was sort of a deadline.
Said, yeah, she gave, I believe, January,
Right.
that we're not going to keep going. And, it just depends how much interest there still is. If things warm up, I'm sure we can go beyond January.
Right. If the right person comes with the.
If the right opportunity would come along, yes.
So let's talk about bringing business to Massillon. What do you think is the biggest thing that right now that we should move towards to get businesses to come to Massillon? Because when I look at Massillon, you got 21, 30, you got a rail system, 241, 172. There's a lot of main arteries that come to and through Massillon. And if there's a business out there, whether it's manufacturing, tech, whatever, what's your thoughts on getting a business?
Well, first of all, if you look how these things develop, as far as right here in Stark County and say Western Stark County, it only makes sense what's happening now at 21 and 30
Right.
because it was an undeveloped area.
Right.
Now, we went through a period, I was a steel worker.
Right.
We hung on to steel mills probably longer than we should have.
Yeah.
They're gone now.
Mm-hmm.
And I see nothing but good coming here for us.
Right.
Like you said, we have it all there. We have 2 highways
Right.
intersecting there. We have railroad lines that go in about 3 different directions
Right.
out of there. Like what's going on down there right now, they have those silos. I don't know do you go down and see that? Look at those silos that are down there on the old Republic Steel property.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What we are doing, or what's going on there, we have soybeans coming in trucks and going in those silos. Then they're pumped into those train cars and they go out to wherever.
Right.
We have cement coming in on train cars into the other silos, and then it goes into trucks and it goes out to
Right.
the areas. So we are starting to utilize that down there.
Right. Well, I believe, didn't they store
The pipe,
the pipe down there as well?
yes. But that was a one-time project.
Right.
They tried for another one. There was a smaller pipe project, I think, going on in Pennsylvania that they were trying to get. Would have been maybe, if I heard right, maybe about 10% of what this other one was.
Right.
It didn't work out, I don't think. I would think we would be doing it by now if that would have worked out.
Um.
But it's a great place. We have the neomodal down there.
Yes.
We have the highways. It's an undeveloped area, but it's been cleaned up.
Right.
Now, it isn't like somebody has to wait on a spot if they need it.
Right.
We have a wastewater treatment plant that we just made a huge investment in.
Sure.
And that was especially for capacity.
Right.
If we have businesses come here, we can
The infrastructure
put them
can
on
handle
right
it.
away. As fast as they can build their buildings, we can
Right.
add them.
Right.
And we're in very good shape with that. Very good shape there. Masson's really a sweet spot right now.
Yeah.
We really are.
So, moving to maintaining downtown infrastructure, we have a question in the chat. It says, how do you think the downtown construction project is going, and do you think it's going to be done on time?
No, it's not going to be on time because it's already behind. I mean,
That's-
in reality, okay, let's just be factual about it.
Okay.
We were told that they were going to do a lot of this preparation for this in February and March
Right.
and April, and then June 1st they were going to start it. Well, they didn't.
Right.
It didn't get started on June 1st.
Sure.
They actually did not start on that 90-day window for the main part there
Right.
until the middle of July. So it was 7 weeks late when it started.
Yeah.
Right from the get-go, it was 7 weeks late. The information out there said that it was going to be started on June 1st and the end of September. In fact, I think it was before the end of September where we were going to be driving on the streets,
Right.
and that didn't work.
Right.
And I know there's reasons, but I think we were just too ambitious
Right.
in what we were projecting. We oversold and underperformed on that. But the biggest thing is now to get it done, get it up, so those merchants and stuff can start recouping some of what they lost.
Sure. That and we were talking off camera. All the main utilities and all that. That's good now.
It's great.
So. I think for me, I understand it's going to look nice. Anything that's upgraded because our downtown was aging, is going to look fantastic. Obviously, the water runoff, gas, water supply, that all was aging. Now it's replaced, so that's good. The only question I have about the downtown project is maintaining it once it's finished. Has there been any talk of how they're going to do that?
I don't see where there's a whole lot more maintenance than what there was before.
Okay.
Okay, maybe with the improvements to the infrastructure, maybe, and even some of the things maybe even be a little easier to maintain. That's something you just have to wait and see. You had to maintain it before.
Right.
I worry a little bit about some of the stuff with some of the trees and some of that stuff. I made the comment before. I'm into the infrastructure. I'm into good streets. I'm into good catch basins and that kind of stuff. Flower
Sure.
pots don't excite me a lot.
Right.
But I also know it's part of it. You want it to look decent,
Right.
look good. But I think if you have top quality infrastructure, it'll sell itself.
Sure.
And that we were lagging behind there.
Right. The only problem that I see that's sticking out is the bump outs. Because if I have, and it's only during the winter time, if my plow's down and I'm coming down, we have to plow that parking lane. If my plow's angled and I go around it, and as soon as I go left, anything that's on my plow gets dumped off to the right. And those bump outs they're pretty good size. Have
The only thing I will say about that, okay,
okay,
and I was very concerned with that,
okay,
but I went down there like I've been down. I don't know if I told you, but right when we started, I went down and measured the curbs before they tore anything out,
right,
because we were saying there was still going to be 2 lanes both ways
right,
with small turning lanes at each end of the block and stuff like that. And my fear was if we did all this stuff with bump outs and everything, we were going to get it so narrow they were going to say, no, we can only have 1 lane each way.
right,
They aren't. Those curbs are exactly what they were
right,
before, 17 feet from the face of the buildings. The bump outs are narrower than a car,
okay.
so I don't see that as being
Do
a
they
problem.
stick up though?
They do stick up.
Okay,
I think there's that might be one little thing maybe we should have looked at in some of these towns I go into, and I go to a lot of towns to look at this stuff.
right,
They have like rolled curbs,
right,
and there's a reason for that.
right,
So trucks can cut corners shorter, and
right.
all those things. Maybe some of that maybe we should have done. I'm not sure.
Right.
Only time will tell.
Yeah. I was gonna say after the first winter we'll know.
Yes.
But
Now the curbs help you with getting rid of the storm water.
sure, you have to be able to control the
But
flow. Of water.
like I thought on those bump outs though, to help when maybe we did have wider loads and stuff coming through their trucks and stuff, that rolled corners on those bump outs maybe would have helped us.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. With some, I think that's probably the one project I've seen in the past 5 years where you look at comments and whatnot on some of the social media, and I think to myself, people have come out of their tree. I mean, I understand, everybody has a position, and some people are more passionate than others, but at the end of the infrastructure part, the gas line, that had to be done.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The beautification, maybe on the fence. Either way, it has to be done now because it's dug up.
Mm-hmm.
So I think cooler heads should prevail. Everybody should sort of back off the gas a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And, even with the McKinley Parade, let's say it doesn't happen. They're still going to have that McKinley Parade.
Well, they'll have it somewhere.
It's just going to go a different route. That's going to be okay, too. That's what I try to tell people. I mean, the football season's not going to stop because of a project. I mean, they're going to have that. So,
I go down there at least twice a week
yeah.
and walk it and look at it. I run into Matt Keller frequently.
Yeah.
Matt, he's part of the committee that has to do it, and he's very concerned about it.
Sure.
But they keep telling them they're on schedule, at least as far as getting it finished before the McKinley Parade.
Mm-hmm.
I only hope they're right. I only hope they're right.
Yeah. Moving on to is this the last time you plan on running, or do you plan on doing this?
I really
until
have no idea.
You don't have a set.
I have no idea. I almost didn't run this time. I thought about it a little bit, and like I said, I like to stay involved.
Right.
And I had some friends kind of encouraged me to do it again.
Right.
And I think I do a decent job at it.
Sure.
Sometimes maybe I'm a little too blunt, and
Well,
for
no,
on
see,
things. But
you can't say that either because if you're not blunt, then they're going to say that you're beating around the bush.
Wishy-washy.
I prefer blunt and
Yeah.
pointy sometimes than something.
it hasn't really got me in trouble. I mean, I saw our finance problems coming even before I went into office. I was on the planning commission before that, and I was aware of what was going on, and I saw those problems coming. They got me on the front page in 2006 saying that we needed to take a look at our city income tax then because
Right.
our revenue was not keeping up.
Right.
It just wasn't keeping up. We needed to do something, and we didn't, so we went through that long, slow slide.
Right.
And I don't like it like that.
Right. So, what do you want to see as far as if there was one thing that you wanted to see happen in, say, the next 5 to 10 years in Massillon, what would it be?
Maybe some. I would like to see some more development in the old Republic Steel area and around the Menards area and stuff there.
Right.
I'd really like. I think we need I travel. I go to towns the size of Mouse, and some of them have 4 or 5 hotels. We've
Right.
got one. I can't understand why we don't have at least another one down at 21 and 30 somewhere.
Right.
I really, they put them over there in Canton, along 77 and stuff by Canton South.
Right.
I think we may even need another one downtown.
Right.
I think that'll happen one of these days. One of these days, that area between Mouse and Navarre is just going to explode, and we're going to,
Sure.
they're
It's
gonna
going to
start
become its own.
gobbling that. And it's headed that way right now.
Sure.
It is headed that way. But I would like to see some more manufacturing coming back.
Okay.
That's what I did. So I would like to see a little of that. And Massillon has that blue collar
Sure.
thing in the background. We're tolerant of business.
Right.
I'd like to see that. What else I would like to see? I don't know. I think we're doing pretty well. I don't have a lot of complaints. I'll complain a little bit, and I think it's fair. If somebody tells you I'm going to do this now and it doesn't get done then, well, you got a right to complain about it. But that doesn't mean it's all wrong. It's just
Right.
maybe we're a little too optimistic and
The timing. Right.
trying to do it.
Right.
But the infrastructure is not done. That was where I did have a problem, like you said, on the tax issue.
Mm-hmm.
It was confusing.
Right.
Okay. Look, I worked out of town.
Mm-hmm.
I know what tax credits are and stuff like that. I didn't like it when we were in fiscal emergency and we took the tax credit down to 75%.
Mm-hmm.
The administration wanted 50%. We only went for 75%.
Right.
When we did started to come out of fiscal emergency, part of that, we were coming out. Once you start getting the money, you're going to come out. That's it. You're coming out. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But our 5-year plan, part of that was we took the tax credit from 75% up to 90%.
Mm-hmm.
We improved it
Mm-hmm.
for the people that work out of town. But we still were so far behind on our infrastructure that we had a 5-year levy for streets.
Right.
I would like to have seen that stay in place because we gave up probably $300,000 to $400,000 per year that we need.
Mm-hmm.
We are still way behind on catch basins.
Right.
We're still behind on streets.
Mm-hmm.
We needed that 5-year thing to get this thing done. Catch basins. We started out when we started going around and inspecting them. When we started into this in 2017, started getting this revenue on the streets. What we'd inspected, we already had 300 and some right away on our list.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we only did probably 150 to 200 maybe the first year, so we didn't gain any ground on it.
Right.
Second year, same thing. Third year, it went up to 400.
Right.
We lost ground because we've had a couple of years of terrible rains,
Sure.
and it just undermined everything.
Right.
We still have like 1,400 catch basins that have never been inspected. Potentially, we have another 150 to 200 that need done, that
Sure.
are critical. I mean, they're unsafe.
Right.
That's what I want. We grade them like 1 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
1's good, really good. 5's terrible. We should have no 4s and 5s,
Right.
and we really shouldn't have 3s either. I mean, but 4s and 5s we shouldn't have, and we have that.
Right.
And that I don't
Unacceptable.
like. That's unacceptable to me.
Yeah.
That means more to me, really, maybe than the streetscape. But I still like the streetscape and that we took care of the infrastructure down there. That's
Sure. Well, and
important.
that's your downtown. I mean, water has to flow down there.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
anyway, that's all I've got. Do you have anything
Okay.
else that you want to put out there?
No, just let me take a quick look here. No, I think that pretty much covered it all. Even though, maybe we missed some dates and we're behind on doing I still think we're heading in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
In 2 years though, we're gonna need to renew this street thing. Because if we don't, it's gonna be like $2 million just bang, gone right out of our budget.
Right.
So that has to happen. And if we don't do a decent job with it, people are going to say, "What have you been doing with it?" Well,
Right.
you know, it looks good right when you do them. You know, people look at them and say you're doing a nice job, but we still have lots of them that we haven't gotten to.
Right. That, and we live in Northeast Ohio. Nothing's forever when it comes to the
Exactly.
roads.
Yeah, that's a continuous thing. I
Right.
mean, it's not like you're going to get them all up to where they should be and then your job's done. I mean, you just have your normal maintenance. That's what I wanted to see us get to where we got to where we could sustain them.
Right.
You know, we have maybe that 50 or 100 a year that we have to keep doing, and
Right.
every year we get another 50 or 100 and do them, but we don't have. I mean, like I said, we may have 600 of them out there that are a mess.
Right. And that, and like you said, it's the ones that you don't know about yet.
Yeah.
Myself operating a street sweeper, if you look at the curb side of both sweepers, you'll see where you've went across one and it collapsed,
Mm-hmm.
and it's rough on a.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it bothers me that I think about, you know, we when we had them starting to deteriorate, we started putting metal plates on them.
right.
Okay. So that people didn't drop in the holes. I mean, there were holes that were, some of them might have been as big as a Volkswagen. I don't know. They were huge. You don't know what's washed out underneath there, really. So we had those there. Well, then when it was getting close to winter, this drove me nuts. I understand it, but they came by and put flags in the dead man's part, so when you're plowing snow, you knew where these things were.
Right.
My thing is what happens if you're driving one of those big trucks with about 10 ton of rock salt in the back of this thing, and you're plowing snow and you hit one of those things with the momentum one of those trucks have with that weight. How far is one of those plates going to go?
You'll launch it like a frisbee.
I mean, it just.
We had a guy actually hit one, and
Okay.
it sheared a small utility pole.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, you could, if you're in a neighborhood, you could put one of those through the front of a house.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would just cut right through.
Yeah, it's not going to
Oh,
discriminate.
Wouldn't even slow down. It'd just go
Right.
through the wood frame house.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing that bugs me. That's really
Right.
my pet peeve on
Right.
some of this. And us to let that tax thing go away like that, we were committed to a 5-year plan.
Mm-hmm.
And we took that off after 3 years for those people.
Hmm.
You know, we all made sacrifices for a while.
Sure.
I believe that should have waited till the last year of that, and then people start discussing, what are
Right.
we going to do with this?
Right.
And at that point in time, if you say we're going to do away with it, that's fine and dandy.
Right.
But not when we're not even 3 years through a 5-year plan.
Hmm.
That really bothered me.
Yeah.
Still bothers me.
Yeah. Mr. Havistow says, respect for Councilman Manson for standing up for what he believes is right for the people. Hospital resi taxes, he seems always honest with the people and his view. And that is the last comment in the chat.
Okay.
No calls. If you don't have anything else, we will sign off.
All right. Thank you.
Yep, you bet. Until next time, stay sharp, keep a tight shot group, and rock on.